Okay, we're going to get rolling. It's the top of the hour. Oh, that's good timing. I'm a big believer in getting started on time, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. Thanks for stepping in and for taking a few minutes of your day. I hope that you're finding the various sessions that you've been to helpful and rewarding to you today, and hopefully this next 45 minutes or so will find something helpful to you in your career, your academic journey, and your personal life too. So I've got a question on the screen here. It says, what do Taylor Swift, Adrian Peterson, Mother Teresa, and you all have in common? And my hope is that by the end of this time together, you're going to be able to answer that question. I'm not going to give you the answer now, but I think you'll be able to answer the question when we get to the end, and probably partway through. But before we get into that, I think it's probably helpful for you to know a little bit more about me. So let me take a minute to do that. My name is Scott Yorkovich, but more importantly than just my name is some things like my family. Married, and I've got 2 sons. And as you can tell by the picture, that one of the things that we do together is karate. And that large stack of boards that's behind us are most of the boards that my sons and I worked through, literally, in training for our black belts. And my wife is on the way to getting to that level. And this is a picture of me with my folks on commencement day when I finished my doctorate degree. And that's at Regent University in Virginia. And this picture means a lot to me. A picture with me and Julie in Hawaii. That's one of our favorite places, most favorite places to go. We've been there many times. And we just find it a beautiful, relaxing, restful place to be. Now this slide tells you a little bit about these 2 graphics at the top are my 2 companies. Rebel Air Corporation is where I do coaching and consulting with people, and I work with individuals, small businesses, sometimes some medium or larger businesses, but usually small organizations, a lot of family-owned businesses, and I do some work with nonprofits and ministries as well. And then these 4 logos are for the various schools that I teach at. I've got relationships with Capella University, based here in Minneapolis, Concordia and St. Paul. Mid-Atlantic Christian University is out on the East Coast in North Carolina. Hi, grab a seat. And Indiana Wesleyan University. So that's a little bit about myself, and we're actually going to return to that in just a bit. But I want to focus right now on what's our topic. Our topic is the role of values in leadership. And my goal for you is to help you identify a few of your own values and to help you understand how those values impact your own leadership. I'm going to help you identify a few of your own values and understand how they impact your own leadership. Now, I just said something very important there, your own leadership. How many of you think of yourselves as leaders? Okay, few hands went up right away, and then a couple were, I don't know, I think that's the answer he wants, but, and a couple didn't raise their hands, and that's okay, that's interesting. So let's take a moment and talk about what leadership is. When you think of leadership, or you think about leaders, what do you think of?
Parents.
Parents are leaders. Why? That's a great answer. Why are parents leaders?
Because we're born thinking that they're, God, basically.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. What do they do that puts them in a position of leadership? Now, that's the wrong question. What do they do that provides leadership for your life?
They teach us.
Okay. They teach you. Good answer. I like that. That helps. Other leaders, parents, who else? A CEO of a company. Why is a CEO of a company a leader?
Because he's kind of the head. He gives direction to the rest.
Okay, I was going to ask. He's the head, yes. The CEO, president, it's the head of an organization. But what do? What was the word used? Give direction. So leaders teach. They also give direction. What else? I'm sorry? Professors, absolutely. We teach, okay? We also provide direction. What else do they do that might be a part of leadership? What's going on up here? Critical thinking. How to think is what I was thinking, but I like that term even better. They help you engage in critical thinking. These are great. And it kind of captures a common definition of leadership that you're going to see is that it is influence. And I forgot to hand this out to you guys. Here, just take the one and then send those back. There's probably plenty here for more than enough. So you can start filling these blanks in. On the middle of the page there, you forgot to take one? Wow. That's cool. All right, just let them sit. Yeah, I'll pick the rest up later. So, yeah, obviously, you need a pen? You got a pen?
Got it.
All right.
I'll take a pen.
You'll take a pen. I got one. Here you go. Oh, okay, cool. All right, good. Got you covered. All right, so you can see there in those right in the middle, leadership is the first large blank. Right here. Leadership goes there. And that is influence. So based on the things that you just said, would you agree that leadership is influence? It's one word that kind of captures teaching, helping people engage in critical thinking, providing direction. There's lots of things that we could put under that bubble, but the one word influence seems to capture it real well. I've read hundreds, thousands, I don't know, many articles on what leadership is, and that seems to do the job well. So, would you agree also that influence is power? If you have the ability to influence the way somebody thinks and what they do you have power? Yeah, you do. All right? Now, when you hear the word power, what goes on in your mind? Reflect here on that word. What's in your mind right now when you think of the word power?
Kamehameha and Hitler, for some reason.
Okay, King Kamehameha? That's because I had the slide of Hawaii up there earlier. And Hitler and what? Okay, yeah, muscle, strength. Okay, what else?
Control.
Control. Exertion. All right, let's go to the word, you said control? Let's go to the word control for a second. Is that a positive or a negative connotation? Do you feel good or bad about that? Good. Good. Okay. Could it be bad? Yes. It could. That's the spirit of what I wanted to get to here, because there's two ways you can go with this. If you are using power for yourself, are you overpowering or empowering? Overpowering. If you're using power to facilitate, to help others, it's empowering. Right? So we have leadership, and we move to, that's really the ability to have influence in people's lives. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. And influence is really power, and there's two directions you can go with that. You can either help others or help yourself. It's one or the other. Sometimes we do both. Okay? It's not, one person, each person is not going to purely do one or the other. But what's the overriding theme in their lives is an interesting thing to explore. So given what we just discussed here, let me go back to the question that I asked you a few moments ago. Are you a leader? Yes. Would anybody here say they're not a leader? I don't think so. Everybody here has influence over somebody, right? So the next question is to ask, who's in your spheres of influence? So those circles that you see on your paper down here, those are spheres of influence. Do you have any influence over your friends and how they think and what they do? Of course you do. Well, maybe a little, maybe not, but some. Okay. So if you want, write friends in one of those circles. What about people you work with? Do you have influence over how they do their job by how you do your job? Or, and especially if you have an official leadership role, you definitely have influence over the coworkers. So coworkers are in your spheres of influence. Family members, you mentioned parents having influence over you. Do you think as a child you have influence over your parents?
Yeah.
You do. You really do. And there's all kinds of spheres of influence. You could put many different groups in there, and you also should see while those circles are distinct and they're not touching at all, many spheres of influence overlap. You might have friends at work, or workmates who become friends, and the sphere of influence then overlaps. So, going back to the original topic, the role of values in leadership, we have to then ask, what are values, and how do they influence this process? What are values and how do they influence this process? So to help address that question, let's go back to my introduction. Got those pictures back up here again. I added one too. Pictures of my family and things that we've done and things that have happened in my life, the various companies I'm affiliated with. This is a picture of my church. My faith is very important to me. I'm a follower of Christ, and this is the church that I attend in Lake Elmo. All right? So with all of this in mind, let me ask you this. What do you think some of my values are? I've given you a snapshot of my life in just a few minutes, but if you were somebody who spent time with me and walked around with me, lived with me, worked with me, did whatever, what, based on what you know, might you say are some of my values? Family, faith, education. And there's one that I can't put up there in a picture very easily. Integrity. Okay? That one kind of bleeds into all of them. Integrity is really important to me. Doing the right thing for the right reasons. But you nail them perfectly. Faith, family, education. I call it learning and growth.
You put recreation up there as well too.
Well, yeah, we have a lot of fun, but that's more of a mode of a delivery, or a vehicle for delivery. But you're right, boy, it's fun. Karate can be fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. But that's about learning and growth too. Exactly. So let's go back.
You're a black belt. Perseverance can be one of those.
Perseverance, yeah. Perseverance could be up there too. Would you remind me, when we get to talking about the list of values, remind me to address, if you remember, remind me perseverance. That'll help me get back to a point I'd like to make that's not actually in my notes.
All right.
So, what are values and how do they influence this process? Where do you think values flows into what happens here?
You do everything based on your values.
And where, and along the process here, what point in the process does that actually take place?
Your leadership. In the beginning.
Yeah, it informs, well, what is leadership? Leadership is influence, okay? Influence is exhibited through power. The values inform my thinking and how I perceive my world and myself, but it's actually displayed right here at this point here. So if you look at your chart, you'll see this list. We're going to put some things in here in a little while. These are values that influence whether I overpower or empower in life. And that's what it looks like. I don't have that on your notes, but you could write that in. So we've talked about leadership. We've talked about the role of values in leadership. But let's dig in deeper to what values are. Let's take a humorous look at values first. And Jimmy Fallon quipped one time that Darwin said a man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life, but he might not have said a man who dares to waste 10 hours of time has probably discovered Facebook. Okay? That's maybe a little humorous way to look at values, but let's take a serious look at values. Here's some scholarly definitions. Dr. Greg Waddell, a friend and colleague of mine, has written a lot about values and leadership. And one of his statements is that values are deeply held beliefs about ultimate desired outcomes and how to achieve them. Wow, that's a lot. And here, let's do another one. Values are the beliefs that lie behind, support, and energize the things we do and the goals we try to achieve. Also pretty heady. If anybody wants to write these down later, I'll give them to you later. And he also said that when a belief is confirmed through experience and written on the heart, it becomes a value. I don't disagree with any of those, but I'd like to find a more practical view of values. And this is the stuff at the top of your notes, okay? Right up here. This definition goes there. What are values? Values are the ideals and principles that we hold most dear and that direct daily choices and actions. So let's break that down a little bit. Ideals and principles. Ideals and principles. Can you hold an ideal? Can you put it in your hand? An ideal or principle. Can you put that in your hand and hold it? Can you put it on a shelf? No, you can't. So we're not talking about things. You might have something that you value, something really important at home on a shelf that you display, that you're proud of. Well, that thing, whatever it is, that trophy in life, actually represents something you value. It's not the thing that you value. I have a friend who spent 3 months this summer, past summer, 3 hours a day for 3 months, restoring a 1950 VW Beetle. 3 hours a day. I said, why in the world did you do that? 3 hours a day for 3 months? I said, I know you well enough to know that you don't value the car. It's not the car that's important. What is it? He said, accomplishment. I persevered, and I accomplished something. And I had a drive in my heart to get that done. And he can look at it and say, I did that. He learned in the process. I'm sure he experienced some trials and solving problems and learned some things along the way. So values are ideals and principles, not tangible things. But if you value a thing, you need to ask yourself, what is it that I value about that? What does it represent? Ideals and principles that we hold most dear, the things that are closest to our heart, things that we get passionate about. Have you been passionate about something in your life?
Artisan bread.
What?
Artisan bread.
Artisan bread.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I would like to hear more about that sometime. So baking is something that you, but bread, artisan bread specifically. Okay, now that would be neat to learn about. See, there's my value of what? Learning and growth. I'd like to learn. He said something, and my wheels are spinning already going, there's something in there that's important to this guy, and it would be neat to learn about that. Yes?
I have a question as far as this definition of values. It seems to touch more on the emotional side of it as opposed to other definitions where they just put more of a numerical value or almost like intrinsic worth. So does that change the...
That's a great question. So are you talking about the difference between something being important in my life and perhaps the size of my retirement account, which I could put a numerical value on?
More of, if, one of those exercises where it's, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate how much this means to you. So that idea of a numerical value.
You could do that, by the way. We're going to get to some techniques in a second. So I'll try to remember to integrate that into what I have to say about that. Thank you. Yeah, there's lots of ways to go about figuring out what the values are and how important they are. That's one. I hadn't planned on talking about that, but I'm glad you brought that up. So values and ideals and principles that we hold most dear, something that's close to your heart and means a lot to you, that direct daily choices and actions. So if there's an ideal or principle that is really important to me, but it doesn't have an effect on my choices and actions, is it really a value? It's really, it's just an idea I like, isn't it? It might be a valid, very important idea. But if it doesn't have an impact on my choices and my actions on a daily basis, it's probably not a value. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean you can't think about, maybe it's a future value, something that will come into your life later. Might be an issue of timing in life. So let's bring this home to you. What are your values? How do I know what my values are? And there's a variety of ways that we can do this. One is there are lots of these lists out there. There are 92 values on this list. And you can look at this list and you can read through it and maybe circle some that you think, hey, maybe that's one of my values. And then you might get into ranking them. All right? Like this young guy said, what about rating them 1 to 10? That can be very helpful. That's one way to do that. Another method is to consider your association with people and groups. Think about the people that you connect with, the organizations and the people that you connect with. And ask yourself, what's important to them? You're choosing to associate with people. What's important to them is probably important to you. And if you do identify what's important to them, and you say, well, those things aren't really important to me, that's an interesting spot to be in. Now you've got to ask, well, why am I associating with them? What is my connection? What do I value in this relationship? Another way is to do some reflection on your life experience. In my coaching work, I spend a lot of time with people doing this. We talk about a life map, and we plot highs and lows in their life, various experiences, accomplishments, trials, and we examine what it was that you learned from those experiences and what you might glean or what you might discern that would be your values. And the fourth one is one that a lot of people don't think about: witness accounts. Who are the people that know you best, and what would they say as witnesses of your life about what's important to you? That can be an interesting experience. Sit down with somebody and say, hey, by the way, give them a warning, because they're going to want to think about it. Say, I'd like to get together with you and have a cup of coffee and ask you this question. Based on what you know about me, what's important in my life? Be honest. I really want to understand myself better, and I think you know me well. So I want you to be honest. So, asking other people to consider your life and what it is that makes that drives you can be very helpful. So I want to get into bullet number 3 here, reflecting on life experience. And I have a few questions that are going to be helpful to you. I'm going to leave these questions on the slide when I get done because I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to reflect on these and the generic list of values that you have to perhaps make a preliminary stab at what some of your values are. So you don't have to write these down, I'll leave them on the screen. All right, so first question. What stories or events from your life illustrate what's important to you? I already talked about that. Think back through experiences, situations that you've had, challenges, and even triumphs. And why was that important? Next question, or pair of questions. What are you afraid of losing? Or what do you want to give? 2 different ways of looking at kind of the same topic. Think about what it is that you would fear losing, and what does that represent in your life? Conversely, what could you give others? What's important that you have that you really want to share with people? I have another pair of questions. What do you want to prove? What's the message that you want to get out and get people to know? This is truth. Get the door. Thanks. What's that?
Kids these days, I tell you.
Yeah, I know, it's just crazy, yeah. We're having fun, what are they saying? Okay, so what do you want to prove or who do you want to become? And finally, what do you want to hide? You know, for a lot of people, I think for all of us, there's maybe some things in our life that we really don't want people to know about. Why? Does that shed light on a value or values? And conversely, what would you like to create and share with others? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to consider these questions and to perhaps look through that list of values that I gave out. And don't worry about coming up with the list. I'll tell you, my list of values of faith, family, learning, and integrity took me months to develop and fine-tune. Months. So don't think that in 3 minutes you're going to accomplish what it took me probably almost a year to actually zero in on and settle. And as you go, you can write those things in these 5 blanks in the lower right corner of that handout I gave you. Green. We'll keep going about 15 more seconds. And don't worry about it, you can come back to this later. Not a test. Okay, so tell me, was that hard? That's interesting. Nose, no. That's a good sign. And that's okay. If you struggle with it, that's fine. But are you telling me that some things popped off that paper, or you had some thoughts already about what your values are, and you were able to get them down? Is that kind of what I'm hearing? All right, good. That's good. A lot of people can't say that, and they need time to think it through. And those witness accounts are very helpful in that. So if you struggle with figuring out what your values are, that is probably your next route. to talk to other people. They'll give you ideas. They don't have to be right, by the way. It's an observation. It's an observation. So, let me challenge you with a thought. It's more than just a thought. I call it, in the past I've called it an important principle, but I'm shifting my thinking on this, and it's a law, I think. It is impossible to act contrary to your actual values. Now, the little footnote here says this highlights the difference between actual and aspired values. So let me give you an example. I said that my fourth value, and these are not necessarily in order of priority, is integrity, because integrity should bleed through into the other things. It's not really lower on the list, it's part of the list. I'm not perfect. I don't always follow through with what I said I would do. I make mistakes. So integrity is something I aspire to, and hopefully in my life I'm continuously improving in my ability to live with integrity. Okay? So if you look at the list, there might be some things on your list where you say, this is really important. I aspire to be like this. And that's good. You want to have things to shoot for. But there might be things on that list that occasionally come into conflict with one another. And when values come into conflict, the higher value will emerge because of this law of values. It's impossible to act contrary to your actual values. Whatever choice you end up making and whatever you do, especially under stress or in a position of having to make a difficult choice, a dilemma, your actual value will emerge. So, for example, you saw in the picture earlier that several years ago I finished a doctorate degree, and because learning and growth is one of my values, I'd actually like to get another one. There's some other stuff I want to study. But I made a promise to my family that I wouldn't do that until the rest of the family was out of college and I had my existing loans paid off. So my value of family is actually, because those two are in conflict, the value of family is emerging as the higher value there. Another situation is that the value of health is an emerging value for me. I hit 50 earlier this year. My body doesn't work the same way it did when I was your age. It takes longer to heal. It's harder to do stuff. And I want to preserve my health as long as possible, though. So this value of health I'm thinking more and more about that, and it's having an impact on my daily choices and actions. See how it's becoming a value? So I'm now considering, well, what do I do to make that a more prominent part of my life? That's becoming something pretty important. So values do shift a little bit over time. I will say, though, that they don't change on a daily basis. They probably don't even change on a monthly or yearly basis. Your values may shift over several years once you figure out what they really are. Now, you mentioned earlier the potential value of perseverance. And you'll notice that the list that I provided you has got 5 blanks on it. Here's what I have found, is that yes, perseverance is something that's really important. You have to persevere to accomplish many things that are important in life. Getting a degree, or earning a black belt. A lot of people have said that earning a black belt is a lot like getting an advanced degree. It does take a lot of effort, and a lot of time, and a lot of money, a lot of sacrifice, which is what degrees are about too. Perseverance, yeah, it's on my list, but what I have found is that most people, they need to have a list of 3 to 5. I've got 4 on my list. If you have more than 5, it starts the list starts to become a collection of things that you think are neat. And perseverance actually shows up in other ways, so it could maybe be a sub-point under some of those others. Education. You have to persevere to get a degree, for example. So your list, the reason I only have 5 on that list is because you probably want to whittle it down to that eventually. And ranking them can help you do that. Because if you find that you've got, I don't know, how many things did you circle on the list? Somebody tell me? Approximately? You've circled 5?
Well, one was on the list.
All right, that's fine. You added something to the list.
I did 9.
9?
A lot of them kind of pair with each other.
Yeah, some of them will overlap. That's a great point.
Yeah, some of them, a lot of them go hand in hand, like, the perseverance. Like, you can't have one without the other.
So you have to decide what label captures it best for you if they overlap. What label captures it best for you and is going to speak to your heart best. Okay, so let's move on. Let's reconnect all of this to what we've been discussing. Hopefully now you see the relationship between leadership, influence, and power, and that you're understanding that your values, if you think about the thing, can somebody be willing to volunteer a value?
Integrity.
Integrity? Okay, so integrity is going to have an impact on how that power is used in your life, isn't it? Absolutely. Okay, somebody else.
Honor.
Honor. Okay. Does honor have an influence on how that power will be used? Whether you use it for yourself or for others? Yeah. And I know enough about honor to know that it's the kind of thing that has an impact on daily choices and actions, doesn't it? Good. One more.
Ambition.
Ambition. Oh, that's a good one, because that could so easily go either direction, couldn't it? So what does that tell you about your use and your living out the daily actions and choices of ambition?
It makes me think of like honor. I mean, it's something that's going to have a big impact on the choices I'm making every day. And I mean, in a lot of ways, it will be more for me, but also for other people.
Yes. And I would encourage you to think about how to be careful with ambition. I mean, I don't know you. This isn't a personal comment. But it could go, especially under stress or difficult circumstances, it could go the wrong way. So think about it. This is something everybody needs to think about. Think about people that you can bring into your life to hold you accountable. Say, hey, ambition is really important to me, but I don't want to mess it up. Would you? I'm going to give you permission to call me on it if I'm going the wrong way. So having friends in your life to hold you accountable is important. All right, so let's get back to my question that I started with. What do Taylor Swift, Adrian Peterson, Mother Teresa, and you all have in common?
Values.
Yes. And do they have the ability to use those values in a particular way? What have we been talking about? To lead. They all have influence on people's lives, don't they?
I guess so.
They do. They really do. And you do too. Maybe you can or can't sing. I have no idea. and you know, I don't think Taylor Swift has spent much time in the slums of Calcutta, India. You know, we could play with all kinds of interesting scenarios here, but each one of these people, including you, have values and the opportunity to use those to influence others. So what are some takeaways? Let me ask you, before I put some of my takeaways on the screen, what are some takeaways that you have?
Be aware of your values.
Be aware of your values. Why is it important to be aware of your values?
We don't always consciously think about it.
You don't always consciously think about it, but do they have an impact, moment by moment, in your life? Absolutely. Now, that, I want you to Think about that for just a second. That could be a little scary. Not being aware of something that influences what you do in your life, moment by moment. Flip that around to what you said, and if you're aware of those things, wow. Now you have the potential to direct that towards something positive. All right, what's another takeaway?
I think realizing that everybody's got their own values.
Yeah,
Yours may not always gel with everybody else's.
yes. I'm glad you brought that up. You do not live in a vacuum. Your values influence your roommates, your neighbors, your friends, coworkers, and his or hers you. You do not live in a vacuum, so you have to be aware of your values and try to discern what that person's values are. Excellent point. Wow. I didn't think about that, but you're right. All right, here's some of the things I hope you learned today. You're a leader, right? And that you can use your influence as a leader to either empower or overpower others. And it's your actual values that determine whether you will empower or overpower others. And the fourth takeaway that I have for you is a question. What are my values? I'm going to challenge you to think about that. Take those 2 pieces of paper as a reminder and to continue to consider and refine your list down to 3 to 5 values. Post it someplace where you can see it and ask yourself, did I live these things today? Did they have an impact on what I did today? And if not, then ask yourself the question, what did have an impact on my actions and choices today? And then I've got the thing that they want me to share with you, the GPS Life Plan workshops offered throughout the year. Don't forget to take advantage of those if you can. Just go to the GPS Life Plan office. I've got lots of these kinds of workshops and seminars throughout the year. Put lots of stuff into this one day for you though. So that's what I have. I thank you for your time. If you've got questions, anything else you want to explore, I'm here to help. And I also have cards if anybody wants to follow up with the next questions and explore things. All right? So thanks for being here.
Thank you. So where do you guys go?
Yes, absolutely.
John?
I'm going to CHR.